on World Report. Globalization today. More money, people, and companies are moving around the globe now than ever before. Who are the winners? Who are the losers? That's the focus of our new series, Moving Millions. Tonight, part 1, Race to the Bottom, a new trend, migrant companies. In a quest to find the cheapest labor and lowest taxes, they're moving not once, not twice, but over and over.
The strategy is to shift production to countries where wages are extremely low, where regulations are extremely weak. As a result, you see a massive exodus of jobs out of the United States.
So I guess you could say they were American jobs that had been exported to Ireland.
And are now going where?
And are now going further east again, going to Eastern Europe and to Poland in particular.
Companies stay only as long as wages stay low. Then it's on to the next, cheaper country. From the U.S. to Ireland to Poland to Vietnam. Companies are on the move. Where will it end? And what about the workers left behind?
We have no milk and honey anymore. Everybody else got it. They took it from us.
Also tonight, a World Report viewfinder. An American island inhabited only by monkeys. And watch out, they bite. We'll explain. All this right now on World Report. Now with the first installment of our series on globalization, Moving Millions, here's correspondent Jeffrey Kay with The Race to the Bottom.
In North Carolina, abandoned plants and shuttered factories are part of the landscape. The decline of the textile and apparel industries has been taking place since the mid-1990s, but it's been getting worse. Recent layoffs by industry giant Hanes Brands, the underwear manufacturer, known for such iconic products as Playtex and Wonderbra, have hit particularly hard.
I don't even buy their products anymore.
I don't either.
You don't?
No.
None of it.
No.
You're boycotting Hanes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't let my family buy Hanes. Nobody. I'm like, no, we don't do Hanes anymore. Anything but Hanes.
You're angry?
Yes.
Like Willie Hill and Barbara Plater, many long-time laid-off Hanes Brands workers are bitter about their layoffs, knowing that Hanes Brands has hired much lower-wage employees in Asia. In their pursuit of low costs and cheap labor, many multinational companies have become migratory, going nation to nation, building factories and closing them down. The ongoing competition to find the lowest costs and the cheapest labor is creating boom and bust cycles and uprooting families in what some are saying is a race to the bottom. Tonight we follow some of these companies and workers, from North Carolina to Ireland to Poland and finally to Vietnam, to see who wins, who loses, and what becomes not only of the places that host new businesses, but of the communities left behind. In Winston-Salem, North Carolina, we met former Hanes employees in a state unemployment office, ironically a building once used by Hanes Brands. Ravorta Howell worked for Hanes for 20 years. Mike Alley was there for nearly 30.
I felt like they should have left our jobs over here, because taking all our jobs overseas, what do they expect for us to do? Just felt like that was wrong.
Do you think they owed you something?
I don't feel like they owe me, but I just felt like they should have stuck around. I mean, 20 years, before you know it, you'd be like, I put 20 years here, and I wanted to retire. So it messed me up.
They were looking out for us, but, it didn't really turn out that way. It didn't seem like it.
Since its founding almost a century ago as a family business, the company has been a linchpin of the Winston-Salem economy. The area around the old mill was known as Hanestown. Landmarks were named for the firm and its founders. In the late 1980s, Hanes began shedding jobs, moving production to use low-wage workers in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. In 2006, Hanes Brands closed more U.S. factories and shut down many of its operations in Latin America and began a move to Asia. Today, the vast majority of Hanes Brands workers are overseas, and 90% of its products are sold in the U.S., mostly through big box stores, Walmart and Target.
Well, our supply chain strategy is very simple. It's to balance it equally across hemispheres, between the Western Hemisphere and Asia.
Richard Knoll is the company's chief executive officer and board chairman. He says the lowest wages in Hanes Brands' Asia factories are between 30 and 60 cents an hour. That's half to a third of their lowest rates in Central America and a tiny fraction of U.S. labor prices.
The labor-intensive portion is in sewing, and those are the operations that will be in Vietnam and in Thailand, and we've had in Latin America for many, many years.
Since 2006, Hanes Brands has closed some 29 factories worldwide. They've laid off more than 3,000 people in North Carolina. CEO Richard Knoll says the globalization strategy has kept the company profitable.
Our supply chain strategy has been consistent for many decades. It's to always operate in the lowest cost places that we can. That allows us to use that cost advantage to invest in our brand, invest in innovation, and keep prices low for our consumers.
The company made no secret of its intentions. Nonetheless, when the axe fell for Ravorta Howell, a single mom, it was a significant blow for her and her daughter. Howell was making close to $22 an hour.
I miss the pay. I mean, I have to be honest with that. I do miss the pay. It's a big adjustment, trust me.
I couldn't do certain things. I couldn't go like to the mall when I wanted to no more, because I ain't had that extra money to spend. Or when I wanted to go swimming or go to Celebrate Station, I couldn't go because my mom didn't have enough money for that gas to drive me that far.
Howell has qualified for aid under the Federal Trade Adjustment Assistance Program, which helps workers whose jobs have moved overseas. North Carolina ranks second in the nation for funds dispersed under the program.
There shouldn't be any problem if you're having enough money to get you through. And you may actually have a few weeks after you finish school.
The assistance extends unemployment benefits and helps pay for retraining. Howell is going for a bachelor's degree in psychology. But Councillor Ann Cannon says laid-off Hanes workers are able to make only a fraction of their previous pay, even with retraining.
The goal to put somebody in school is we want them to make at least 80%. But I'm thinking that probably what you said, Mr. Alley, about 50% in your case is probably about right. And if you're going into anything with social services or anything like that, you're going to take a major cut to Ms. Howell. Yeah. There was a lot of anger out there. And then we've moved through depression, fear. Fear is out there too. It's an evolving economy. It's a changing economy. And so there are people who are getting, having the ground come out from, falling out from under them.
Scott Nova heads the Worker Rights Consortium. The organization criticizes Hanes Brands' treatment of overseas workers.
Essentially, it's a smash and grab. Go to a country, pay very low wages there for clothing for a short period of time, make some money, move on to the next cheaper country.
We talked to Nova outside a Hanes Brands factory in Eden, North Carolina, a plant slated for closure.
Hanes Brands' global strategy, unfortunately, is the same as the global strategy of virtually every major brand and retailer in the apparel business. The strategy is, and it's been one that's been in place for decades now, to shift production to the greatest extent possible to countries where wages are extremely low, where regulations are extremely weak, and where it's therefore possible to produce extremely cheaply. As a result, you see a massive exodus of jobs out of the United States and the creation of jobs overseas that are actually very bad jobs for the workers who ultimately take them. Degrading working conditions, exploitative behavior by managers, and wages so low that it's impossible to support a family in any kind of decent standard of living.
Is it a race to the bottom?
I don't think so. As you look at the places that we go and we operate, as industrialization is taking hold and we're able to bring jobs to those localities so that they can get their economic engines going. Actually, I think on a worldwide basis, when you take a view across all boundaries, you're helping a lot of people rise their standard of living, which is good for all of us.
But for how long? That was the question we had in coming to Ireland, whose economy was roaring 15 years ago thanks to a massive influx of foreign investors. The roar was the sound of the so-called Celtic Tiger. Low taxes, an educated and cheap workforce, and government subsidies attracted multinational high-tech companies, turning Ireland into one of the fastest growing and wealthiest countries in Western Europe. For a number of years, the Irish economy sailed along, propelled by a booming construction business created by the new money foreign investors pumped in. The boom in construction and service sectors attracted migrants to Ireland thanks to liberal immigration laws. The influx of foreigners was unprecedented in a country with memorials which pay homage to the millions of emigrants who left to escape hardships.
This is the River Lee in Cork, a waterway that's seen its share of migration. 150 years ago, Irish migrants were packed aboard so-called famine ships, fleeing poverty. These sites along this river would have been among their last views of Ireland.
The immigration to Ireland changed the complexion of this once homogeneous country. Today, 3 out of 20 Irish residents are immigrants. The largest number of recent arrivals have come from Poland. Shops and businesses catering to Poles sprung up around the country, and Poles became an integral part of the workforce. The Rock House restaurant in Cashel in County Tipperary prides itself on its traditional Irish food. One of its chefs is 25-year-old Krzysztof Matuszewski, who came from northern Poland in 2007 without any previous cooking experience.
Do you have a favorite meal?
I still prefer Polish food.
You prefer Polish food?
Yeah. Matuszewski earns between $600 and $750 a week, depending on how much work there is.
It's the same as I earn here per week. In Poland, I need to work a whole month for it.
You're making in a week what it would have taken you a month to make in Poland.
Yes.
But the good times here for Poles and Irish alike are ending. The tech firms that had fueled all the growth in Ireland are moving on, looking for even cheaper workers elsewhere.
Sometimes it can be quite hard. Somebody has worked for a multinational firm for 10 years, 15 years, has got to a very good salary, has got a lot of benefits, has got a lot of security, and suddenly that job goes.
Michael O'Connor is the chief executive of the Cork Business Innovation Centre in southwest Ireland.
The term, I guess, that we use in Europe, and it's a European Union term, because this issue is common across Europe, is delocalization. Some people call it relocation, but they're no longer local. They've fled to the globalized market.
Delocalization, and I thought Americans were prone to euphemisms. O'Connor assists former employees of multinationals that have delocalized, or in plain English, up and left. This is a poster child for a fallen tiger. Motorola's old design facility in an industrial park in Cork is now an abandoned building. A peek into a vacant office offered a clue as to where the jobs went. Dell Computer set up in Limerick in 1990 to take advantage of cheaper Irish workers and became the country's second largest employer.
Products were being built in Limerick, Ireland, and then shipped to the United States. So I guess you could say they were American jobs that had been exported to Ireland.
And are now going where?
And are now going further east again, going to Eastern Europe and to Poland in particular.
Conor Moynihan is a radio host who has also worked as a software engineer. He's had a bird's eye view of Ireland's boom. He put in 8 years at Dell in Limerick and was acutely aware that the biggest project for many of his colleagues was setting up a lower-cost operation that would lead to job cuts in Ireland. The company was reducing its workforce at its 3 Irish facilities.
Where was the 4th one going to be? Somewhere in Eastern Europe, and there were a lot of people who worked in Limerick at the time who were working on the project to select and build and start up that first manufacturing, I suppose the first manufacturing facility in Europe to be outside of Ireland was built in Łódź in Poland.
And just recently the axe fell. Dell announced that 1,900 people would lose their jobs and operations would be shifted to its plant in Poland. It's been a 1-2 punch for Ireland. As many tech jobs dried up, the recession kicked in, and the real estate bubble, which had sustained Irish prosperity, burst. As a result, immigration from Poland slowed and is even reversing. Now, as Poles see opportunities in their own country, many unskilled workers in particular are heading home, while increasing numbers of Irish people are moving abroad.
That's the revival, Jeffrey, of a traditional cycle which Irish people have been, as you well know, immigrating into the United States since the mid-19th century, and that came to almost a complete halt. And indeed many of my friends and relatives who would have lived and worked in the United States, many of those came home in the mid to late 90s, and now we're looking at a situation where Irish people are once again talking about going to work abroad.
In a moment, World Report's series Moving Millions continues. Next stop, Poland. Not long ago, Poles fled to countries like Ireland for work. Now, guess who's coming to Warsaw?
I'm a qualified bricklayer. It's easier for me. I'll probably be gaining more here than I would be at home.
Then labor's even cheaper further east, in Vietnam. But low wages can mean both opportunity and hardship.
Sub-poverty wages, verbal abuse of workers by their supervisors, sometimes physical abuse by supervisors, minimal health and safety protection.
Jeffrey Kay follows the race to the bottom. But first, this World Report Index.
New Ireland. Just over a year ago, Dell Computer opened a sprawling 9-acre manufacturing facility in Łódź, Poland's 3rd largest city in the center of the country. It is moving production from Ireland here. We were not allowed to shoot inside. The factory, built at a cost of almost $300 million, employs some 1,800 people, a workforce that is expected to grow to 3,000. Since joining the European Union in 2004, Poland has seen strong economic growth and falling unemployment. A good, cheap workforce has attracted foreign investors.
Which commandment in the law is the greatest?
Western Europeans are coming to take advantage of rising opportunities in Poland, an influx which has spurred the growth of an English-language Catholic church in Warsaw.
If you go on the streets of Warsaw today, you can see a cosmopolitan city. If you see our parish, for example, you see parish that we have people from all over the world, right? So I think Poland is now facing a new phase of the European Union, which is receiving the immigrants and people who would work here and who would work for their families, but also in this country, right? What is the trend? Usually we are used to the fact that many Poles left Poland looking for a job in England or Ireland, right?
Yes.
And here we have people who left their countries to work in Poland. Right?
And they are continuing to, because the jobs are plentiful, if not as well paid. Polish wages are still among the lowest in Europe, offering tempting prospects for foreign investors. For now, even as other European countries are mired in recession, experts predict that Poland's economy will continue to grow over the next year. So with open borders in the EU, the money and the workers are flowing in. At an Irish pub in Warsaw, we ran into Cathal Moynihan, a construction worker who had arrived the day before from Dublin.
I'm a qualified bricklayer, but I was working for a company there for 5 or 6 years, and there's no more work left over there.
A friend pointed him to a job in Poland. He'll earn less than he made in Ireland, but he expects to make around $700 a week.
It's a small drop. It's not that big of a drop, really. You're talking in euros, you might be talking losing out maybe €200 in the week, but it's much cheaper to live here, and it's easier for me. I'll probably be gaining more here than I would be at home.
And is there much work here that you know of?
Plenty of work here, yeah.
Really?
Plenty of work here, yeah. There's no problem at all getting work.
Simon Coney and Ben Smith are also recent arrivals in Poland. They work for multinational companies doing property appraisals and came from England, where work is slowing.
And jobs are getting cut, belts are being tightened, and yet you'd have to say that sort of Central and Eastern Europe is maybe 8-12 months behind. So there's still plenty of money coming in and opportunities over here.
You're seeing a lot more expats, if you like, coming out of this part of the world, and that'll probably continue, I think, for a bit, definitely.
And so what are your plans?
My plans? I'm gonna finish this beer. But no,
after the beer.
After the beer. My plans are to keep maybe stay in this part of the world, not necessarily Poland, for at least another 2 years.
Along with the Western Europeans, many Poles who recently left their country are now returning home. Since 2004, more than 2 million Poles have gone abroad. Now there's a pattern of reverse migration. Paweł Kaczmarczyk, Deputy Director of the University of Warsaw's Center for Migration Research, has been tracking the movement of people and corporations to Poland.
It has a lot to do, obviously, with cost of labor.
You're right.
And quantity and quality of human capital. And I think this is why Central and Eastern Europe is so popular among Western European and also American enterprises. I think that the quality of human capital is particularly well approved in this side of the world. For example, Poland is well acknowledged for the IT specialists. So if you like to use this capital, this human capital, maybe the best idea is just to move here and settle here.
That's exactly what Philips, the Dutch electronics giant, has done. Since 1991, it's been moving operations from Western to Eastern Europe, among them this so-called back-office operation in Łódź. Here, some 50 dealmakers sit at computers scouring the globe for equipment and services the company needs. Their purchases total about $300 million a year.
And our strategy, the overall general purchasing strategy, is about moving this tactical job from people being located all around the places in Europe, in North America.
Arkadiusz Rachowczyk, who runs Philips' Global Sources Services Centers, says that as the company has consolidated, its Polish operations have become more important.
What advantage does Poland have over the countries that Philips has left?
Basically, there are a couple of those. I think the wage arbitrage is of an importance here.
The what?
The wage arbitrage, the wages, salaries.
The wage difference?
Yeah, correct.
What is the wage difference?
We are talking, looking at the workforce which is concerned, we are talking probably the difference between 50,000 euro annually in West Europe to 20,000 euros annually here in Poland, which is a significant delta.
Significant difference.
Correct.
Translated to American terms, buyers here earn $21,000 to $28,000 a year.
It's less than half per person what you would be paying in Western Europe.
Correct. Correct.
And is that the reason then that this center is here?
That's not only this one.
But it is one of them.
That's one of them, indeed. That's important one. I think what we also are able to prove is our eagerness to make things happen, is our dedication, is our proactiveness. Basically, we are trying to really grab the whole picture and try to find solutions.
One solution that motivated Philip's move to Łódź was a $4 million package of benefits in the form of subsidies and tax reductions from the Polish government. Despite many outward signs of prosperity, Poland is still very much a developing nation. To turn things around, Polish officials have established 14 special economic zones, offering financial incentives as bait to lure foreign businesses. Dell received nearly $74 million, just about a quarter of the cost of its plant in Łódź. The once depressed city is witnessing a transformation. The old brick factories that prior to 1990 marked the area's prominence as a center for the textile factories are being converted to other uses. The textile industry has moved to Asia. Instead, foreign investors, many of them brand names such as Gillette, DHL, and Sunoco, have moved in. The multinationals have hired locals, lured back Polish expats, and brought in foreigners.
The countertop has to be completed, and the appliances fitted.
Paul Jack is another Irishman now living in Poland. He moved his wife and teenage daughter from outside Dublin to Łódź in 2007 as opportunities faded in Ireland and grew in Poland.
So where do you consider home? Is this home?
No, I think my heart is still in Ireland, but I'm sure that will diminish over time.
Jack works as a technical manager for Amcor, an Australian-owned packaging company that has shifted production from Western to Eastern Europe. This plant, one of 3 in Łódź, prints plastic bags for snack foods. Like his father before him, Jack grew up in the printing industry. He had hoped to stay in Ireland, but Amcor closed 2 plants, one in Belfast, the other in Dublin. So like other Irish people, he's on the move.
Within Ireland, the printing industry has died, and it was necessary for me to travel if I wished to stay within the industry. I have colleagues in France and Germany, and so I think once again the Irish are dispersing themselves all throughout Europe.
What has it meant for you to uproot yourself like that?
It's been quite traumatic, but really it was essential for me if I wished to stay within this industry.
Amcor executives say the wages here are about a third of what they were paying for comparable work in Western Europe. In addition, Polish government officials sweetened the pot by promising training programs and tax incentives. Cezary Wojciechowski is in charge of Amcor's Polish operations.
We participate in some meeting with local authorities, and we ask them, to make a special program in the schools or on university to get much more people. What we have.
So they helped you find people.
Yeah.
What about taxes?
Here in the special economic zone, we have no taxes. It's tax release.
None whatsoever. No taxes.
Till 2017.
And you have to stay here till that time.
Yeah.
Łódź Mayor Jerzy Kropyniewski takes much of the credit for the city's resurgence and for the unemployment rate, which has plunged.
In 6 years, from 21 to 6.5, it's enormous, I think. And today, our unemployment rate is less than the national average and is lower, much lower than the regional one. So we transformed from the black hole of Poland and of region into the machine of development for the region and very soon also for Poland.
But the business-friendly attractions now being created by Polish authorities sounded very familiar. I asked Michael O'Connor, the entrepreneurial expert in Ireland, who introduced me to the term delocalization, what he thought about the Polish strategy.
Many of the factors that companies found attractive here, cost being a major factor, taxes, wages. Poland is now saying, come to us.
Absolutely, and but watch this space, because what happens over time with economic development is costs rise, and therefore the move to delocalize is a constant pattern that happens. Any gain that somebody has through a cost base is only transitory.
The Wuj mayor recognizes the pattern. He was around when the local textile factories shut down.
The textile industry just in 1 year disappeared in our city. And what we are trying to do is to invest in high quality of work. We cannot even dream to compete in wages and taxes with, let's say, China. But we can compete with them with the quality of job.
At least for now. The competition from Asia is growing, and if, as critics contend, there is a race to the bottom, one finishing line is the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Which brings us back to where we began this story, with HanesBrands. Within the past 2 years, the globe-trotting underwear manufacturer has opened 4 Southeast Asia sewing plants, 2 in Vietnam and 2 in Thailand. And it's building a textile factory in China. At the same time, it's closed 8 facilities in Latin America and the United States and fired 6,400 people. This HanesBrand plant in Hue in the center of Vietnam employs 900 workers. Another one outside Hanoi in the north has a workforce of 1,300 people. The company is expanding both factories, and by the end of 2010, HanesBrands expects to have a labor force in Vietnam totaling nearly 6,000.
Vietnam has a good labor force, good labor cost, a good infrastructure, good energy cost, and it is convenient for our fabric location in China in terms of flow and logistics.
Javier Chacon, HanesBrand's vice president for Asian apparel operations, says the material will be made and cut in China, shipped to Vietnam for assembly, then packaged for sale in the United States.
Why is it easier or cheaper for you to have everything done in Asia and then shipped back to the United States? Why not do everything in the United States?
Oh, we're talking about labor costs. We're talking about an industry that has tremendous competitive forces working and price as well.
And the average wage here is what?
The current monthly take-home is about $80. That's the average. It might go higher, depending on the productivity. And as the operations mature, and because of the incentive pay, the operators will be able to make more as some of them are already doing.
So the faster they work, the more money they make.
That is correct.
That's $80 a month for a 6-day, 48-hour work week. Employees get free lunches during 30-minute breaks in the company canteen. Each production line has its own table. The underwear made here will be sold in the United States. HanesBrands is the biggest employer in the province, but worker rights advocate Scott Nova doesn't see that as necessarily good news.
Our concern is that workers at a Hanes facility in Vietnam will face the same abusive and exploitative working conditions that apparel workers in Vietnam have faced for years. Sub-poverty wages, verbal abuse of workers by their supervisors, sometimes physical abuse by supervisors, minimal health and safety protections, and a country in which it is illegal for workers to try to join together in a union to protect their rights and advance their interests. That's what we've seen in Vietnam for many years, and there's no reason based on HanesBrand's track record around the world to expect that its employees in Vietnam will see anything any better.
Vietnamese workers cannot legally join non-Communist Party labor unions. However, there have been a growing number of wildcat strikes in Vietnam's factories. The main complaint has been low wages amid an inflation rate of nearly 23%, the highest in 2 decades. But there's been labor peace at HanesBrands, and company officials reject the allegations of exploitation. They point out that the $80 a month their workers make on average beats the Vietnamese legal monthly minimum of $50.
The company pay above 65% minimum wage, Vietnam minimum wage. And the company also provide very good working environment. For example, we are the first one equip the AC in the factory for worker, and also provide the ergonomic chair for people.
Vu Ding Dong, a Hanes Brands plant manager, says companies like Hanes Brands are helping bring about Vietnam's industrial revolution. 50% of the workers in this factory previously worked on farms making subsistence wages.
They earn more money.
Right.
And second thing, they educated by the discipline and working environment here. Industrial working environment.
Plant officials introduced us to sewing operator Tran Thi Mi Nang, who says her life has been changed. 2 years ago, at the age of 16, her family sent her to live with an uncle in Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, in the south. She worked in his tailor shop as a seamstress, sending all the money she earned back home. She was able to return when she got a job at Hanes Brands.
It was difficult in the South working such long hours. From 6 or 7 in the morning until 6 or 8 at night. Now I feel more comfortable working only 8 hours a day.
Tran lives with her parents and her brother in their rural house just outside Hue. They have running water for drinking and they use well water for washing. Primitive by American standards, but Tran's father, a 45-year-old construction worker, says foreign investors are improving the local standard of living.
It's clear. People have income and buy more things. More people have better things to sell.
Vietnam's industrialization is part of a broad strategy. Since 1987, the communist country has pursued a policy of economic renovation, shifting from central planning to a mixed market system that encourages private and foreign investment. Overseas businesses have pumped in about $40 billion worth of investments, most in manufacturing, most in the last couple of years. At Vietnam's Foreign Investment Agency, Boy Quoc Chung, a top official, says the country has set itself a goal to become an industrial nation by the year 2020.
We start open for our door for the foreign investment since 1987, and up to now is at nearly 20 years, more than 20 years. Yeah. So that we reached a very great achievement concerning about this issue. Up to now, we have nearly 10,000 enterprises, foreign enterprises, have investment in Vietnam now.
Boy takes pride in the fact that a number of growing companies have selected Vietnam instead of China, or have expanded to Vietnam from China. Vietnamese workers, on average, earn about half as much as their Chinese counterparts.
They think that if they have investment in Vietnam, they get more profit than they have investment in China.
Why?
Because we have some advantage, competitive advantage, especially for our labor force. It's cheaper than and lower cost than in comparison with the China cost in Vietnam.
Is that the main reason?
I think so. That's the main reason.
But wages are relative, and even if they're low, the incomes provided by factory jobs in Vietnam have led to a migration of peasants from the countryside to the cities. And what does it cost to live around? What do people pay?
As I said, if you pay for one room and one person, it's about $50 per month.
Dong Nguyen An, a professor of sociology at the Vietnam Academy of Social Sciences, has been tracking the growth pangs of rapid urbanization. How has this area changed? What did it used to look like? How is it different now?
Actually, 4 to 5 years ago, I was here. It's very quiet. It's very quiet 5 years ago. And then some business started. And people keep coming here to live and stay for years in these areas to work for the factory nearby here.
Once quiet residential neighborhoods like this one, Sai Dong, a suburb of Hanoi, have become crowded. The water can't support the population. Street vendors have set up makeshift shops outside housing tenements.
The housing, finally, it's very problematic because to get the cheap rent, you have to share the house with other workers. So maybe 3-4 persons in one room.
To make ends meet, migrant workers in the cities supplement their incomes by peddling newspapers or produce. Others polish shoes. Migrants have moved into dilapidated housing on the bank of the Red River in Hanoi, and hastily constructed, though relatively new apartment blocks intended to house growing populations have become casualties of neglect and disrepair. The economic surge has created an explosion in the number of motorcycles. 1 in 4 Vietnamese now has one. But there have been some serious downsides to increased mobility. For one thing, motorbikes are a major contributor to Vietnam's worsening air pollution. As Poland did, and Ireland before it, Vietnam, eager to attract foreign investors, provides transnational companies with significant financial inducement. The Planning and Investment Department of Hue Province, working with the central government, provided Hanes Brands with a tempting package, according to Pham Mon, the number 2 official in the department.
If I'm not wrong, they have the first 3 tax-free. The following years, they just pay 50% of the normal enterprise tax. After that, they will pay 7.5% corporate tax instead of the normal 15%.
But will it last? Are foreign investors in it for the long haul? Or will Vietnam experience the same transitory benefits as other countries? Will Hanes Brands just pick up to go someplace cheaper if and when costs and workers' wages rise here?
So at what point does Vietnam then become unaffordable for you?
Well, I would say for a long time. We usually, we have pretty much been doing this for, in some other countries as well. And so far what we see is that we stay a very long time in the communities where we set operations.
But at some point, might you be reassessing and moving on to another country where the labor costs are cheaper?
20, 30 years from now, probably, we cannot say never. But we usually stay for a relatively long time in the communities where we establish operations.
There's no question that Hanes Brands' global strategy helps its bottom line and keeps American consumers in relatively inexpensive underwear. But if perhaps the arrival of a migrant company like Hanes is good for people like Tran, it's pretty tough on the workers left behind.
They did what they had to do. They hurt a lot of people, but it's a lot of jobs folding. They're going where they can get it done cheaper, and if I was in business, I would probably do the same thing they done. It's low cost, and you can't get mad at them for us losing our job. I'm not angry with them.
But not all former Hanes employees are so philosophical.
Well, they say this is the way the world is going. That they've got to be in China, they've got to be in Vietnam, that the labor is cheaper there. That
well, what about us here? We're not supposed to have a job.
The land of the free, milk and honey. Where is that? We have no milk and honey anymore. Everybody else got it. They took it from us.
Up next, a World Report viewfinder from the island of